Heartwarming photo revealed, poor black girl surprises billionaire with incredible life change. In the heart of a bustling small town, a photograph captured a moment that sent ripples of hope through the nation. A spirited 12-year-old girl named Kiara, her radiant smile lighting up the dreary day, stood next to billionaire James Mitchell, a man whose very presence screamed wealth. But here's the twist: Kiara had no intention of seeking riches, she only wanted stability for her family. After her father, a devoted veteran, lost his job, Kiara and her mother, a tireless nurse, struggled to make ends meet. Yet, with her unwavering determination and kindness, she transformed hardship into heartwarming acts at the local community center, offering comfort to an elderly neighbor and brightening lives around her. One sunny afternoon, while helping out at the center, the town buzzed with energy. Children's laughter filled the air, mingling with the rich scent of baked goods wafting from the kitchen. Kiara rushed in, her arms full of colorful handmade cards for residents. You could see her heart, bursting with a desire to lift spirits and make the town feel united, thrive within each vibrant drawing. Her infectious enthusiasm brought everyone together, reminding them they were still a community. Little did she know, it all would soon change when that very moment was captured and went viral online. Suddenly, Kiara became a beacon of hope, a poor black girl who caught the eye of James Mitchell. Intrigued and inspired, he set out to visit her small town, ready to lend a hand. But upon his arrival, a wave of skepticism washed over the locals. They viewed him as just another wealthy outsider, untrustworthy and unfamiliar. The townsfolk whispered their doubts, eyes narrowing like shadows against the bright afternoon sun. Still, Kiara saw only the earnest man standing before her, strikingly out of place among their modest homes. Yet, when face to face with the man she saw on her phone, mixed feelings stirred inside her. How could someone with so much understand what people like her family faced each day? Frustration bubbled within. She confronted him, her voice quivering yet strong. "Why are you really here?" she demanded, raw emotion spilling forth. "Do you think money can just fix everything? To you, we're just a story to tell." Her brow furrowed. Tension thickened the air. Could he grasp the depth of her struggle? "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the community observed this clash of rich versus poor, emotions surged. Many felt Kiara's pain, while others stood by James, hoping he might be more than just a stereotype. Heated discussions erupted in the town square, mirroring the town's internal conflict. Kiara's stubborn belief in compassion and community began to wobble. James's ambitious vision of support collided with her reality, and just when alliances seemed impossible, a thought sparked. Perhaps there was common ground. Together, they could create opportunities, jobs for veterans, support for families struggling like hers. Face to face, they began to understand, real change wasn't just about money, it was about connection, the bonds formed through shared stories and struggles. Would they find a way to reconcile their differing worlds and turn their intentions into transformative change? As they began planning, an unexpected challenge arose, putting their fragile alliance to the test. The air crackled with tension as they stood on the edge of something monumental, hearts pounding, anxious yet hopeful about what was to come. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the town square as Kiara and James stood surrounded by their neighbors. The conversation had shifted, taking on a more serious tone. People were finally starting to voice their fears and hopes. Kiara's heart raced as she listened, feeling the weight of expectation pressing down on her shoulders. What if it doesn't work? A voice piped up from the back. It was Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who had watched Kiara grow up. What if he just takes his money and runs? What's to stop him? James shifted uneasily, running a hand through his hair. I mean, that's not my intention at all," he stammered. His earnestness shone through, but the doubts in the crowd were palpable. Kiara sensed their reluctance, their need for reassurance. It was a tough spot for everyone. She took a deep breath, grounding herself. "No one can change everything overnight," she said, her voice steady but soft. "But if we work together, each of us playing a part, we can turn things around. I can't promise miracles, but I believe we can build something better for all of us." Her words hung in the air, and she noticed a few nods from the crowd. Encouraged, Kiara continued, "James wants to help us help ourselves. I see that. Just like how each of us has building blocks we can contribute. Maybe this is the start of something truly meaningful." The atmosphere shifted, tiny sparks catching among the townsfolk. Perhaps it was the raw hope in Kiara's voice or the smile that crept back onto James's face as he began to see the possibility of a partnership, something real. He stepped forward, addressing the crowd, "I'm here to listen. Let's discuss what we need: the jobs, the support for families, the resources we can access together." Kiara felt the swell of collective energy. People began shouting out suggestions. The community center needed funds for renovations, they dreamed of creating after-school programs, and a fund for veterans' job training. Each idea stood out like a bright star piercing through the overcast, yet, as they brainstormed, a dark cloud loomed in the background, casting a shadow over their progress. Whispers of a rival investor, someone looking to revitalize the land but with little regard for the community, reached Kiara's ears. It was a troubling distraction, and she sensed danger. The bitter sting of corporate ambition could easily overshadow their hard work. "Everyone, we can't lose our vision," Kiara exclaimed, fear creeping into her words. "We need to protect what we've started together." The townsfolk looked at one another, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. They had witnessed what happened when money and power brushed aside the needs of real people. Kiara's heart sank as she watched their hope begin to flicker like the nearby streetlights. The weight of her words lingered in the air as James turned to her. "We can fight for this," he said firmly, meeting her gaze. "Every single one of us deserves to be heard." Slowly, the resolute energy began to rise again, flickering candles of determination reborn. As they planned their community meeting for the next day, Kiara couldn't shake the feeling that their struggles were just beginning. What if the townsfolk couldn't unite against the looming threat of the rival investor? How would they defend their dreams? Kiara's thoughts raced as she prepared for the next day. One glimmer of hope shone bright: if they stood together, they could find strength in their unity. As night fell, they all parted ways, a mixture of satisfaction and worry heavy in the air. Could they rally the town before it was too late? A spark of urgency ignited within Kiara's chest. Tomorrow would be key. Could they defend what they had built so far? She had to believe. But what if their efforts weren't enough? As dawn broke over the small town, Kiara could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her. She woke early, the sun casting warm hues through her window, but her heart felt heavy. Today was the day they would present their plans to the community, rallying together against the looming threat of the rival investor. She dressed quickly, her mind racing through all the possible outcomes: everything that could go right and everything that could go wrong. Outside, the streets were still quiet, save for the gentle rustle of leaves in the morning breeze. Kiara closed her eyes for a moment, inhaling the fresh air, willing herself to find peace. She thought of Mrs. Thompson's worried face and the uncertain murmurs among the townsfolk. If she could just convey their need for unity, perhaps the dream they envisioned could still take flight. Arriving at the community center, she found James already setting up chairs, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Morning," he greeted her with a smile, though his eyes revealed a touch of anxiety. "Ready for this?" "I think so," Kiara replied, attempting to mask her own nerves. "We just need to focus on our goals and remind everyone what we're fighting for." One by one, community members trickled in, some exchanging worried glances, while others appeared resolute. Kiara could see the mix of determination and fear painted across their faces. She took a deep breath as the meeting began, a knot tightening in her stomach. James opened the floor, inviting people to share their ideas and concerns. Kiara could feel the rising tide of hope when they spoke of long-desired changes, safer streets, better facilities for the children, support for the elderly. Every suggestion held a piece of their collective heart, but with each enthusiastic plan came an undercurrent of doubt. What if it's not enough? Whispered one voice, a young man dressed in work clothes that showed the marks of hard labor. What if they just bulldoze us? Taking a step forward, Kiara met his gaze. Then we make noise. We don't just stand aside and watch. We have to show them what this place means to us. Her pulse quickened, she felt the eyes of the room upon her, each gaze a silent plea for guidance. If we come together, we can make them see that we're not just a piece of land to develop but a community with dreams, families, and histories. A ripple of murmurs swept through the attendees, and the atmosphere began to shift again. She could sense a glimmer of hope igniting. Let us draw up a petition. Someone shouted from the back, and another echoed, we can get people involved from outside the community too. Kiara's heart swelled. This was the spark they needed, but as ideas flowed freely, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease. New whispers began swirling about the rival investor, rumors of behind-the-scenes meetings and tactics that could undermine everything they were working for. She caught sight of a familiar face in the back, someone who had often been critical of change, Brian, the town council member, arms crossed and brow furrowed. As the meeting continued, Kiara caught James's eye, and they exchanged a look of mutual concern. They both knew that not all of their neighbors would be on board with their fight. What if Brian was already sowing seeds of doubt among the townsfolk? As they wrapped up, Kiara felt the sense of accomplishment in the air. But deep down, anxiety gnawed at her. The battle was no longer just against an investor, it was against the skepticism simmering within their own community. A few reactions from the crowd flickered in her mind, unrelenting. That fear. That discontent. She knew they were facing much more than a simple corporate adversary. Could they unify their voices when faced against the town's own divisions? The moment they all left the community center, stepping back into the sunlight, Kiara felt the tension mount within her again. Could they truly rally everyone together? As she stepped beyond the doors, looking at the faces she cared for, she felt the urgency tighten once more. How many hearts were truly invested in this battle? Would they rise, or would cracks form under pressure? Tomorrow would not just be about their community's ideas, it would be about their very strength. Would that be enough? The sun hung high in the sky as Kiara walked home, the weight of the meeting still pressing down on her. She fought to shake the foreboding feelings, knowing that doubt could spread like wildfire if they weren't careful. Each step felt heavier than the last, and the chatter of the other townsfolk drifted into her mind, blending into a fog of uncertainty. What's the plan now? James fell into step beside her, his brows still furrowed. Do you think they'll really back us up? Kiara glanced at him. His earnestness was a welcome anchor amidst the rising tides of anxiety. When I spoke today, some people they seemed to want to believe. But I worry, she sighed, her voice barely above a whisper. What if they hear Brian's doubts? What if they think it's pointless? James nodded, concern etched on his face. We can't lose hope. We have to keep pushing. But he paused, choosing his words carefully. Maybe we need a better strategy to counter him. Show them what we stand to lose. She nodded, mulling over his suggestion. Maybe we can gather stories of families in our town. Show them why this matters, share how it impacts real lives. I love that idea, James said, his eyes lighting up. People need to see the faces behind those dreams. That warmth swelled in her chest again, momentarily pushing back the shadows. They brainstormed as they walked, their imaginations igniting new possibilities. Ideas flowed easily between them, visions of heartfelt stories, moving photos, and people coming together in unexpected ways, a collage that proved their fight was worthwhile. When they reached her front porch, Kiara turned towards James. Can you help me with gathering those stories? I want to reach out to everyone, Mrs. Thompson, the kids in the park, everyone. Count me in, he replied with a confident grin, but then his expression turned serious. Just promise me one thing, Kiara. If things do get worse with Brian, if the town starts to fracture, you'll keep me in the loop. We face this together, right? Absolutely, she assured him with a reassuring squeeze of his arm. But deep inside, fear flickered anew. What if this effort exposed more fractures than it healed? That evening, as she flipped through old photos of their town, she looked for faces to match the stories spinning in her head. Each image reminded her why she cared so deeply. There was an old photo of her grandparents at a town meeting, holding a sign advocating for community spaces. The memory sparked a warmth that cracked through the cold air of her uncertainty. She needed to share this feeling with her neighbors, help them remember why this fight was essential. Hours passed, and exhaustion crept in, but Kiara couldn't sleep. Her mind was a whirlwind of interwoven stories and worries. What would Brian do next? Would the town pull together or begin to unravel? As she drifted off, her dreams were filled with images of a vibrant community, standing shoulder to shoulder against the looming shadow of corporate greed. For a fleeting moment, she felt a wave of hope wash over her, but as dawn broke once more, illuminating her room, a thought gnawed at her. Would she be enough to lead them, not just in passion but in strength? And could their small town truly fight back against the forces gathering outside their doors? Kiara knew the answer was out there, waiting, but it felt like a fragile thread that could snap. What if the truth behind their community's strength was buried just beneath the surface, waiting for someone to dig it out? Kiara woke to the soft light filtering through her window, but it was the uneasiness that began to tug at her heart. Today was the day. She had decided to gather the stories, to ignite the flickering flames of hope in her community. Heart racing, she dressed quickly, the thrill of purpose chasing away the remnants of doubt. After a quick breakfast, she stepped outside and inhaled the crisp morning air. It felt electric, buzzing with untold possibilities. She called James, the anticipation in her voice undeniable. Let's South meet at the park. We can start there. As she walked, thoughts of Mrs. Thompson and the children filled her mind. Would they share their stories? Would they trust her to tell them? The park soon came into view, vibrant and bustling with families. She spotted James sitting on a bench, jotting down notes with an eager expression. Hey! He waved, excitement sparkling in his eyes. I've already talked to a few families. They want to help. The Thompsons are in. Kiara felt her heart leap. That's amazing. The more voices we have, the stronger we'll be. Together, they set off, surveying the park in search of their next subjects. Children laughed, chased each other through the grass, and the laughter felt like a powerful balm for her fears. They approached Mrs. Thompson first, an elderly woman with a warm smile that always made Kiara feel at home. Kiara, dear. What's this about you gathering stories? Kiara took a deep breath. We want to share how our community has come together, and how it might change if we don't stand together. Mrs. Thompson nodded, her eyes glistening with understanding. This town has given me everything. I'd love to share our story. As they sat under a maple tree, she spoke of long summer nights when neighbors would gather for barbecues and share their lives. Kiara's heart swelled, the love in Mrs. Thompson's words was palpable and real. With every story, she felt the ties of their community weaving tighter around her. They moved on, talking to families about their struggles, their hopes, and the laughter they shared. Each encounter added another thread to the fabric of their mission, but also fanned the flames of anxiety. Kiara felt the growing weight of their stories. What if sharing these heartfelt memories opened old wounds? As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in warm hues, they headed to the park's playground. Children played freely, unaware of the turmoil brewing around their parents. Kiara's stomach clenched as she saw the group of kids running, laughing, a blur of innocence in a world grown heavy with responsibility. Look! James pointed. Let us talk to them too. Kiara hesitated. Kids were honest, but could they understand the gravity of what they were fighting against? Seeing their pure joy, she knew they might just be the reminders that could rally the adults behind them. She approached the group, swallowing her uncertainty. "Hey there. Can I ask you some questions about what makes our town special?" Their energetic chatter filled her with an unexpected warmth. As they talked, their laughter intertwined with their stories, creating a beautiful tapestry of hope and belonging. It was a reminder that there was still light, even amidst uncertainty. As the day faded into dusk, Kiara and James walked back, the weight of their day heavy on their hearts, but something had shifted within Kiara. She had tasted the strength of their community, and it was growing. What if the truth wasn't just buried but alive in the hearts of those around her? And what would happen if they all faced their fears together? The thought hung in her mind as she prepared for another day of digging deeper into the community's soul, ready to unveil the warmth and strength she believed could turn the tide. But in the back of her mind lingered a daunting question. What if proving their worth stirred the anger of Brian and his allies? What was the price of hope in the face of rising opposition? The next morning dawned bright and clear, but the promise of a new day was laced with tension in Kiara's chest. She grabbed her notebook and met James at their usual spot. As they paced the park, the lively chatter of families around them felt like a stark contrast to the heavy thoughts they carried. "What's next?" James asked, breaking the silence that hung between them. "Maybe we should talk to the townspeople more directly," Kiara suggested, determination brewing within her. "We need to ensure they know they have a voice. We can't wait for them to come to us." James nodded, his brow furrowing as he considered their next steps. They decided to visit the community center where a town meeting was scheduled for later that afternoon. Kiara felt a spark of hope flicker. This was their chance to rally everyone together. As they walked, Kiara shared her worries about Brian and the growing division within the town. "We might need to be prepared for backlash," she confessed, a tremor in her voice. James placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're not alone. We can do this. Everyone deserves to feel valued, to share their stories. Remember Mrs. Thompson?" Her words carried strength. The idea that their small project could have an impact was beginning to take root. Another thread woven into their mission. When they arrived at the community center, the buzz of chatter filled the room. Families mingled, exchanging snippets of their lives. Kiara's pulse quickened, but she focused on the goal. She approached a group of parents, introducing herself while James fanned out to engage others. Some parents were hesitant, but the glow in their eyes began to emerge as Kiara listened attentively. "What do you love most about living here?" she asked, genuinely curious. A mother with wild curls spoke first. "The sense of belonging is everything to me. I want my kids to feel that too." Kiara jotted down her words, using them as fuel for the fire she hoped to ignite. Meanwhile, James was chatting animatedly with a father who explained how the church had served as a backbone during hard times. "It's like family," he said, his voice thick with affection. Every moment felt like a gift. Kiara's heart swelled with the embodiment of community. Just when she thought the day couldn't get any brighter, they spotted a handful of children gathered in a corner, playing a game of tag, their laughter ringing like music through the air. Feeling inspired, Kiara approached them. "Hey, can I ask you what makes our town special?" she queried. The kids turned, faces lighting up with excitement. One boy piped up, "The park. We can play here every day. And the ice cream shop is the best." Kiara fought back tears. Their simple joys echoed the dreams of parents and grandparents woven through their narrative. In that moment, she recalled their own collective strength. She felt a wave of determination wash over her. This was why they were gathering stories. Not just to document, but to inspire unity. As the meeting commenced, the community members filled the seats, eager to voice their thoughts. Kiara took a seat beside James, their eyes interlocking with a shared sense of purpose. She clutched her notebook tightly, feeling the weight of responsibility that came with their mission. But just as the town leader began to speak, voices of dissent started to murmur from the back. Kiara's stomach dropped as she recognized a familiar face. Brian. Anxiety brewed like a storm cloud in her mind. "Look," James whispered, his voice barely audible above the gathering noise. "It's going to be all right. We stand strong together, remember? They both exchanged unwavering glances. Kiara took a deep breath and prepared to confront what lay ahead, a confrontation not only for their community's spirit but for her belief in hope itself. Little did she know, this was not just about local stories anymore. This was about something much larger, a battle for their shared future, ignited with their voices. What would happen if their stories could bridge the divide? Would it lead to unity or chaos? As uncertainty loomed, Kiara steeled herself, ready for whatever would unfold next. The moment hung there, taut with anticipation. Brian stood in the back, arms crossed, an expression of disbelief on his face, as if he could not fathom what Kiara and James were trying to accomplish. The air was charged, and Kiara could feel every heartbeat in her chest echoing louder than the town leader's voice. "Ladies and gentlemen," the leader began, trying to rally the crowd's attention. "We're here to discuss the future of our community and how we can continue to move forward together." Kiara leaned closer to James, her moment of resolve catching fire. "We need to speak up. Now." James nodded, his eyes lit with support. Just then, Brian's voice sliced through the gathering. "What future? You mean the future you want us all to see, while you pretend problems don't exist?" It reverberated through the room, a weighty accusation, sparking a stir among the attendees. Kiara's heart raced. She glanced around, looking for the support she hoped would exist. The murmurs heightened, some eyes wide with interest, others clouded with fear. "This isn't the time for division," she called out, her voice quivering but firm. "This meeting is about all of us." Brian stepped forward, his posture tense. "And who are you to decide what's best for us? You think telling stories will fix deep-rooted issues?" He motioned to the audience, seeking to rally them to his side. But Kiara couldn't back down. She felt the weight of everyone's stories on her shoulders, the hope and the hearts of families who wanted change. "It's about more than stories," she said, her voice rising above the din. "It's about giving everyone a chance to be heard. There's power in our voices, in sharing what we care about." A woman in the crowd, an elderly woman with gentle eyes, stood up. "Kiara's right. We have voices, and we've been silent for far too long. We need to express what matters to us." Encouraged, Kiara pressed on. "What we build together, it can heal our divisions. We can transform our community, but we need to start by listening. Each story, each experience matters." Brian scowled, aiming to undermine her resolve. "And what if we don't want to be united? What if some of us are tired of pretending?" Kiara took a step closer to the edge of the aisle, feeling the energy shift in the room. "Then let us talk about that. Let us not ignore our disagreements. We can face them together. I believe that true change can only come if we acknowledge both our joy and our pain." A nervous energy rippled through the crowd. People started murmuring, some nodding in agreement. James shot Kiara a proud smile, a tiny flicker of victory sparking between them. "Let us share tonight," Kiara continued, finding her voice stronger with each word. "Let us share our dreams and fears, our failures and victories. Together, we can become a stronger community." In that moment, she felt the shift, a bridge beginning to form across a challenging divide. But Brian's skepticism still loomed large. He didn't glance away, and she could see in his eyes the storm still brewing. The town leader, sensing the building momentum, chimed in. "We can split the discussions into smaller groups. Ideas don't have to be set in stone tonight. Sharing starts here." With a mix of reluctance and intrigue, the crowd began to settle into smaller circles, voices rising again, unsure but determined. Kiara's heart fluttered with a fragile hope, yet a part of her still feared the hostility that could emerge from Brian's camp, threatening their mission. As Kiara joined one of the circles, she stole a glimpse back at Brian. He remained rooted, an island of resolve amid a sea of conversations breaking out around him. Did they have what it took to transform the tension into understanding? Before it became too clear, an unexpected figure stepped forward into the mix. The very last person Kiara could have predicted what secrets would unravel as they finally faced each other. Could this moment define their town's future, or would it fracture everything they worked for? Kiara's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the figure stepping into the circle. It was her old teacher, Ms. Jennings, the one who had always encouraged her to speak out and pursue her dreams. The sight of her was like a splash of cold water, refreshing yet shocking. Kiara had not seen Ms. Jennings in years, and she didn't expect to find her here, amidst the intensity of the meeting. "Ms. Jennings!" she exclaimed, disbelief mixing with excitement. The teacher smiled, her warm presence cutting through the tension like a beacon. "I couldn't miss this," Ms. Jennings said confidently, her voice firm yet soothing. "It's time for us to gather together, isn't it?" Kiara felt a surge of hope. "Yes. We're discussing our community, our voices. It's time we share what matters to us." Ms. Jennings nodded, scanning the faces around her. "I've always believed in the strength of stories, not just my own, but everyone else's. They weave us together." The crowd seemed to lean in, drawn by her gentle authority. Brian stood firm, his arms still crossed. "You think just sharing stories will fix everything? People need action, not just talk." Ms. Jennings responded calmly, "Action comes after understanding. Stories help us understand each other. They make us realize we're more alike than we think." At that moment, the crowd began to murmur again, remembering their own stories. Kiara felt a movement, an energy rebuilding. She glanced at James, who gave her a reassuring nod. Could they really capture this moment? "Let us share," Kiara said, stepping forward a little more. "Let us talk about what we've been through. I want to hear your stories, your heartaches, and your dreams. It's all important." Brian rolled his eyes, but several others shifted forward, intrigued. An older man, sitting close to the front, raised his hand slowly. "I lost my job last year. And it broke me," he shared, his voice cracking but resolute. "It felt like no one cared. But hearing her, Kiara, makes me want to try again." Others joined in, releasing experiences of pain and hope. A young woman spoke up, her voice tinged with hesitation. "I always thought my anger made me weak. But being here and listening, I see I'm not alone." With each story, a flicker of connection surged in the air. Kiara felt the walls around her heart begin to melt. This was the change they had wanted. One voice grew into a chorus of shared humanity, resonating through the space. Brian still seemed unmoved. "You think this will change things?" he challenged, but his tone sounded almost less certain, an edge of question creeping into his voice. "Yes," Kiara countered, deep determination filling her. "When we share who we are, we open doors. And who knows? Maybe we can find solutions we have yet to consider." The crowd nodded, a quiet energy pulsating among them. Kiara could feel something profound shifting beneath the surface, a collective willingness to engage, to dare to hope for tomorrow. But just as the atmosphere felt ready to shift completely, Brian took a step forward, turning to Kiara. "But what if sharing only makes it worse?" His voice was low, but it carried. "What if knowing each person's darkness just adds to our problems?" Kiara's heart raced. The weight of the question hung heavy in the air. Was Brian right? Would facing the darkness unravel them instead of bonding them? As the crowd fell silent, awaiting Kiara's answer, she locked eyes with Brian. Beneath his tough exterior, she glimpsed a flicker of doubt, a spark that told her this fight was far from over. "We're about to find out," she said softly, her voice filled with steely resolve. She sensed this moment could either propel them toward healing or push them further apart. The question lingered like a storm cloud. Could they turn the tide of fear into something transformative, or would their past ultimately defeat them? The next voice might change everything. Kiara felt a ripple of anxiety surge through the crowd as silence enveloped them. She sensed the weight of Brian's question, heavy and charged, holding the space in an uncomfortable stasis. The intensity of the moment pressed upon her, like a thunderstorm threatening to break. Suddenly, a young man named Leo stepped forward, his hands trembling at his sides. Kiara had always been aware of Leo's struggles, watching him navigate hardships she could hardly fathom. Yet, the determination etched on his face surprised her. "Sharing does make it worse," he began, his voice steady, breaking the silence. "But it's already worse. What else could be done?" Kiara's heart quickened. Leo had a point, and she felt the crowd nodding along with him, their collective unease giving way to something deeper: gratitude. "I lost my brother to violence a year ago," Leo continued, his voice cracking but unwavering. "I walked around with this burden alone, thinking it was my fault, that I should be done more. Sharing that hurt with everyone here, it makes it real. And that is scary, but maybe the only way to heal is to face what happened." A low murmur swept through the crowd. Kiara watched wide-eyed as several others began to resonate with Leo's words, one after another, revealing their own wounds. Ms. Jennings, standing strong and serene, nodded in approval. "You've taken a brave step forward, Leo," she said. "Sharing isn't about making wounds bleed. It's about letting the light in so healing can begin." With those words, something changed. Kiara saw vulnerability take form before her eyes, fanning the flames of courage in those present. One by one, stories poured out with greater urgency. A mother spoke about losing her home and how it felt to struggle every day, her children's laughter now silenced by worry and fear. A teenager shared her battle with anxiety, the feeling of isolation that gnawed at her soul, and how she felt invisible even in a crowd. Kiara found her voice rising amongst the tide, eager to contribute. "When we share our pain, we make room for understanding," she said passionately, her words flowing like a river breaking through a dam. "And when we understand one another, we can create change. We can turn our voices into action. We can fight together." The crowd erupted in support, clapping and nodding, igniting a sense of unity that hadn't been there. Brian's skeptical expression began to soften, and for the first time, Kiara noticed his demeanor shift as he stepped back, still guarded but less hostile. Just then, something extraordinary happened. A woman with bright eyes wide with emotion raised her hand. "My name is Tanya. 10 years ago, my son was shot. We buried him on a rainy day. How do you even begin to say goodbye to someone who meant everything?" The collective gasp echoed, the air thickening with shared grief. Everyone was holding on to their breath, blotting out the world outside their circle. Tanya paused, tears streaming down her cheeks, and Kiara felt her heart race. Would this moment break them or bring them closer? But it inspired something fierce. Together, Tanya continued, her voice gaining strength, "We can't erase what happened, but we can tell the world that our stories matter." As Kiara nodded, heart swelling with hope, she noticed Brian shifting again, although this time, there were signs of a fracture in his defenses. What if his voice wavered slightly? What if we let our stories reach beyond this room? What if we built a platform for others? His words hung in the air, and Kiara's heart raced, recognizing this as a pivotal moment. Brian's suggestion could ignite a spark of change that could ripple through their community. She locked eyes with him, a daring plan blossoming in her mind. "Then let's promise to not just share here, but to take our stories outside to do something with them." Just as the crowd began to buzz with excitement, Kiara felt the undeniable pull of possibility. What they could create together could heal wounds beyond their own, and as this hope flickered brightly in the air, she wondered, what if they could truly change the world with their stories? What beyond healing awaited them when they broke the silence of fear together? The answers were just beginning to unfold. The community center buzzed with energy as Kiara's words lingered in the air. "Let us promise to not just share here, but to take our stories outside to do something with them." Her heart pounded in rhythm with the excitement around her. The room erupted in applause. It felt electric. Kiara could barely contain her exhilaration, but beneath it lay a deep-seated apprehension. Would they truly follow this newfound momentum? Yet the bubbling enthusiasm among her neighbors gave her hope. "Together, we can create a community festival. James shouted, his eyes bright with daring dreams. A day where everyone shares their stories, their art, their food, everything that makes this town what it is. We can show the world who we are. Yes. The rallying cry surged through the space, igniting animated discussions. Ideas flowed like water released from a dam, each suggestion building on the last. People began voicing their talents from spoken word to music, and Kiara saw the energy transform the room from a battleground into a vibrant tapestry of dreams. Kiara's gaze found Brian, who stood at the back, arms still folded but with a new spark in his eyes. "This festival," he said, voice steadying, "we could project our stories into the community. Advertise through social media and local media, let people know we're united." "It's more than just a festival," Kiara countered, stepping forward with renewed courage. "It's about showing everyone we are not just a collection of faces, we are a family with dreams, struggles, and stories that deserve to be heard." Her declaration rippled through the gathering, cementing the reality that they could create something truly transformative. As the crowd rallied around this collective vision, Kiara detected a shift within herself too. The fear that had once gnawed at her began to fade, replaced by a sense of powerful responsibility. They could face the outside threats together. Plans unfolded in a whirl of excitement as they divided into work groups: decorations, food, music, and, of course, story collection. Kiara joined the story group alongside Ms. Jennings. "We want to gather not just what's easy to share," Ms. Jennings said gently, "but also the hard stuff, because that's where true understanding lies." They kicked off their planning with invitation letters that included personal stories. It was the first step toward their grand festival. Kiara felt a warm glow inside her as they began connecting people, unearthing hidden narratives. The town was alive with talk of the festival. So many wanted to be part of it, but challenges loomed. Kiara heard whispers of a potential protest from those who stood against the changes. As community spirit bloomed, there were murmurs from Brian's corner questioning if they should ally against this new wave of change. But that didn't stop Kiara or the town from pushing ahead with fervor. As the day of the festival dawned, Kiara arrived early to help set up. The park transformed into a vibrant scene painted with banners, laughter, and a buzz of anticipation. Families mingled, their stories shining like colors on a canvas. It felt like hope manifested, breaking through weary days. When the festival began, Kiara took the stage with James by her side. The crowd hushed, eyes fixed on her. "This is for all of us," she declared, her heart beating wildly in her chest. "This is our moment to show that stories connect us. Solitude can't thrive when we face our fears together." People stepped up to share, some trembling with vulnerability, others radiating triumph. Each story became a thread in their community fabric, stitching together their shared hopes and pains, binding them closer. Kiara noticed her mother's face in the crowd, pride shining through tears. She felt her own heart bursting, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. Together, they were drafting a love letter to their town, a testament to resilience that echoed through every voice. Brian stepped forward too, sharing his own story of hardship, of doubting the community he had called home, yet feeling renewed by the fire each voice ignited. The crowd listened intently. Even those once skeptical began to lean forward, captivated by the honesty. By day's end, the festival had become something exquisite, an open-hearted gathering where each person walked away feeling a little more heard, a little more loved. It was proof that when they stood arm in arm, their collective fight against a rival investor, or any looming threat, was far more powerful. As night fell, Kiara stood looking out over the crowd, illuminated by twinkling lights. She grasped James's hand, squeezing it in shared relief. "We made it," she whispered. "Together," he said with a radiant smile, all uncertainty vanishing as joy flooded every crevice of their being. And in that moment, with the shimmering lights twinkling like stars overhead, Kiara understood the impact of their journey. Together, they planted seeds of unity and purpose, flourishing amidst adversity. They were not merely a town, they were a family. As the last laughter echoed into the night, Kiara felt certain of one undeniable truth: the heart of a community beats strongest when united through stories, dreams, and unwavering support. They had turned their fears into an unbreakable bond, and that was a transformation that would last well beyond a day. Now, it was time to spread their story further, to let others see what they had built together. So, as this journey comes to an awe-inspiring close, remember to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss out on the next exclusive stories filled with hope and inspiration. Leave a like now because your support feeds the algorithm and helps these heartwarming stories reach more people. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. Let us cherish this journey together, and finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this powerful transformation. This is the moment to show your support, spreading light and strength. Don't wait not even one more second, let your voice spark change.